So I've been doing photography for over a decade now, and every now and again I still make the most basic mistakes. Sometimes my focus is off, and sometimes my shutter speed could have been faster. And that's okay, mistakes happen, and you'll never stop making them, but at the very least, we can be quicker at spotting them and correcting them on the spot. So here are 7 photo mistakes that I see beginners, including myself, often make and how to quickly avoid it next time.
Mistake number 1, learning from the wrong people.
Now, not all, but a good majority of photography forums, i.e. Facebook groups, aren't exactly the best places to go level up your photography.
Loved it.
Mediocre at best.
I am so done with this group.
As you can see, photography is an incredibly subjective medium. A photo that you might think is amazing can be considered a bad photo for using the wrong settings or if it's overly edited. Vice versa, a photo that you might think is poorly composed can be considered a great photo simply because it tells a better story. But when you join such a general photography community, you often get those conflicting opinions. So the best way to learn and get feedback is to find a specific style that you like and get critiques from the right people who shoot very similarly. For example, if you want to get better at off-camera flash photography, my good friend Francisco Joel Hernandez here runs a popular Facebook group called Learn to Light, where members frequently share camera settings and lighting setups of their own shoots. It was what helped me immensely get better at off-camera flash photography myself. Alternatively, your local camera stores could be running workshops. Some free, some paid, but it's a great way to just go meet your local community and grow your photography together. Keep your apertures wide open for these events. A little bit of a photography joke for you there.
Mediocre at best.
Over-reliant on wide autofocusing.
Now, I'm a bit of a nosy Nancy when it comes to seeing what cameras other people are using. I can't help it. If I'm outside and I see you have a camera, I'm gonna look. And occasionally I would get a, hey buddy, eyes up here. Nice lens. But often what I see is people just pointing their camera at a wide scene and taking a photo without much of a thought. And then going into these Facebook groups asking why their photos are not in focus. Unfortunately, we cannot change the focus after the fact, so the only thing that we can do is to ensure that next time we're not too over-reliant on wide area autofocusing. Don't let those focus thoughts run loose. Always, 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 always choose a specific focus point. The smaller the better, and really position them to where they need to be. Even if you have a fancy camera where it can track the subject's eyes, you should always try to use medium to smaller focus areas so your camera can do the least amount of guessing. That way, you would have a higher chance of getting the right subject in focus. And hey, if you're using a Sony camera, then you're in luck. I have a free guide to mastering autofocus that goes into way more details. No sign up necessary. Just click right up here to queue it up. But promise me you'll at least finish this video first.
Mistake number 3, mistaking blur for misfocus.
Now, in that vein, maybe you have been choosing the right focus point. You're tracking your subject and the focus box seems to be following them pretty well, but somehow your photos are still not in focus. Then likely it's blur rather than misfocus. I know, it's a bit hard to distinguish the two terminologies, but misfocus is where the wrong subject or the wrong area of your photos in focus, whereas blur is usually because the right subject moved, but your camera wasn't fast enough to catch them. Now the cause of this is likely because you're shooting in some type of auto mode or aperture priority, which often neglects a very key but important setting: shutter. If your shutter speed is too slow, then your moving subject will be a blur. So instead, try switching to shutter priority and moving your shutter to the right, increasing the fraction number. Now the following is not a strict rule, but a good enough general baseline if you're new to photography. Try 1/125 for still subjects like portraits, 1/250 for moving portraits, 1/500 for animals and kids sports, and 1/1000 for pro sports and wildlife photography.
Mistake number 4, not thinking the opposite.
So likely right now you have the bare basic kit lens that came with your camera. So our general thinking is wide focal length for wide scenes and tight focal length for distance and close-up scenes, right? But try to think the opposite direction the next time you go out. Using a wider focal length but getting close-up shots will often make your subjects feel larger than life. Oppositely, using a tighter focal length on wide landscapes or cityscapes bring the perspective much closer and often make it look more uniform than just shooting wide. So earlier we talked about finding the right resources to learn from, so a great resource you can sign up for today is PPA. PPA stands for Professional Photographers of America, and they have a ton of tutorials online to help you not only step up your photography game, but also running a photography business. With over 900 individual classes, you can learn everything you need, from mastering studio lighting to the psychology of landing a sale. And it's not all online either. They have events, they have workshops, they have a community where you can meet like-minded individuals, including their yearly conference, Imaging USA, which is coming up in February 2025 in Dallas, Texas. And admission is free when you're a PPA member. Yeehaw!
Don't do that.
On top of that, the moment you become a member, you get $15,000 worth of gear insurance. That means you get full replacement coverage with a flat $350 deductible, or you can repair your equipment with a flat $50 deductible. I know some of you out there who are born with butterfingers, so you're definitely gonna need this. To learn more, check out my link in the description box below, which you can also use to save $25 off your membership when you sign up. Thank you so much for listening, and let's continue to not make these following mistakes.
Mistake number 5. Always using the lowest f-stop.
So the notion here is that you spend all this money on a fancy f1.2 or f1.4 lens. It would be a waste to shoot anything higher than that, right? God forbid we tune it up to just f1.6. The mutiny! Now, for those of you who are still learning the basics, what makes these super low f-stop aperture lenses so special? Well, allow me to give you my famous 3 Bs.
Jason Vong's famous 3 Bs.
Number 1, bokeh. Big, beautiful background blur that you cannot achieve with the most basic kit lens, and people go crazy for these background blurs. Number 2, bigger hole. Wider aperture means you can open up this hole in your lens to let in more light. Therefore, it's highly recommended for low light situations. Number 3, but really, wider aperture prime lenses usually mean they're in the more premium line of lenses, aka it's expensive and people just want to flex their big old buttholes. And that's okay. Obviously, use the lenses to their best advantages. But what I'm trying to say here is, it's not the end-all be-all of apertures. If you blur the hell out of everything, I mean, yeah, it's a nice photo, but you could also be blurring out a lot of context. Here's a classic example that I love to share from my friend Professor Hines. The lockets on the fence here are cool, but when you close down on your aperture, you get a bit more context that the photo was taken in New York City. The f-stop numbers here, just like the lens itself and the camera itself, they're all just tools to help create the best final image. So don't disregard them just because you spent so much money on them to do that one thing that they're good at. Give a reason to make your photo to be worth 1,000 words.
Mistake number 6. All blurry photos are bad.
Now, just to be clear, I don't want to give off the notion that all blurry photos are bad, okay? Blurry photos can 100% be a stylistic choice when used correctly. But if you miss focus or the photo is slightly blurry, don't toss it in the bin quite yet. I've shot a wedding years ago. It was a father-daughter dance. Got lots of great sharp shots, but they didn't really have the extra oomph, if you know what I mean. But there was this one photo that nearly had all the elements, but the focus was not tag sharp. Now, at the time, I was new to all of it, subscribing to the idea that if it's not sharp, throw it out. But for some reason, I didn't. I sent it off anyway, with my aperture down here closed down to the max, worrying if the bride might say something. But it ended up being the bride's favorite photo. How did I know that? She changed it to the exact photo on Father's Day.
Mistake number 7. Forgetting who their audience is.
And that's the thing, right? We sometimes get so caught up with trying to get the right settings and the sharpest photos that we tend to forget who our real audience is. Which brings us to the final mistake of this video.
What's going on, guys?
When I first started out both photography and here on YouTube, I was always so anal to make sure that all the settings that I use and share on social media were correct. My shutter speed had to be pinpoint perfect. My flash setting had to be so dialed in that no extra power was wasted. The eyes had to be tack sharp, but not the eyelash. It just got to the point where I feel like I was just shooting for other pros or so-called pros on the internet, but really it's just a bunch of strangers that have zero stakes or attachment to my work. But the people I delivered the final photos to never cared about what settings I used, nor did they ever zoom in to check if I nailed focus perfectly or not. Of course, you should always try to aim to get it right in camera, but my point is, don't be too hard on yourself. So when we're starting out, how do we figure out who our audience is? Well, it's going to largely depend on why you picked up photography in the first place. Maybe it's just for you and your friends and family. Then in that case, they aren't going to be too hard on some of your mistakes.
You don't know my family.
However, if you want to take dope photos of cars, then your audience is going to be car people. If your business is weddings, then obviously you want to appeal to inquiring brides. And when you show your targeted demographic the photos, you'll get a more positive reaction versus the ones you get on the internet.
These photographs are breathtaking.
So remember, don't shoot for the photography/camera community, shoot for your community. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Check out PPA and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Thanks for watching.